I am James Barfield with your Urban Connection. This is the channel that is often imitated but never duplicated. Because remember, most others won't touch the topics we talk about. Now, today is going to be no different, and we're going to touch on a touchy subject to many of you. But before we begin, let me say this to you all. I would like for you to leave your comments, and I'm sure you're going to have some after today's show. Leave your comments on the channel, and don't forget to punch the subscribe button, okay? Now, today is May the 1st, 2022, and that's an important day for some of you. And I want you all to mark that date on your calendar. And it's going to be, maybe not today, but down the road, a very important date for you who are members of the United Methodist Church. Because the day is the day that the United Methodist Church splits into two different groups. Many conservative members of churches that belong to the United Methodist Church are, as of today, forming a new group of conservative Methodist churches that will be named the Global Methodist Church. Now, I know this will come as a shock to some of you, but it's true. But what will probably be more of a shock to you is the reasons for this split. You see, the conservative members of the United Methodist Church are splitting because of the fact that they no longer believe that their church, the United Methodist, is a big tent, should I say, organization or church. In other words, they're splitting because they say they've had enough of the liberal side of the church engaging in same-sex marriage, gay clergymen and women, I guess, racism, not engaging in racism, but engaging in, should I say, diversity, inclusion, and equity. Okay? Now that's the cause. Now, let me remind you that the United Methodist Church has over 6 million members here in the United States. But they also have about 6.5 million at last count in other countries such as Africa and other foreign countries. So what's been happening? This has been brewing for a long period of time. And basically, it has now come to a head. They changed bishops last month in April. And the new bishop has said they're going a different direction, okay? They no longer want to engage in what they call the liberal activities that segment of the church is involved in. So they want to form their own group. And it's interesting. And it's interesting because of the fact that this group basically feels, and I'm going to paraphrase, okay? This group basically feels that if you're Black, if you're brown, if you're a member of the LGBT, they don't want to have room for you in their church anymore. They don't have any love for you. They simply want to be left alone to go about their business without engaging or involving themselves in anything having to do with anti-racism, anti-LGBT, or not anti. Well, yeah, anti. They don't want to engage in that. You know, they see the liberal faction as going too far, and they've had enough. Now, the former head of the bishops who preached at the last conference on April the 25th made it known that there was going to be a split in the United Methodist Church. And the new bishop, who is part of the liberal bent, confirmed that just a couple of days ago. And they said, as of today, Sunday, March the 1st, 2022, there will be a global Methodist church coming to a city near you sooner rather than later. Okay, so you can get ready for it. Whether you like it or not, this is the path they've chosen to take. They want to separate themselves from the group that is known and has been known for a great number of years as the United Methodist Church. They no longer want to be identified as such. They feel that they basically want to cater to, preach to, teach to members of the European race. Okay, so there you have it. And this is the way it's going to be. And I know, like I said, this is going to come as a shock. And one of the other things is that this is news to many of you, if not most of you, because you see, you don't see this on the front pages of your local newspaper. You don't see this on your mainstream TV channels. You're only finding this out here. You heard it here first for most of you, because that's what we do, okay? And basically, I would just tell you that when it comes to dealing with racism, bigotry, and prejudice, I go where the action is. I go where the racism is, where the bigotry is, where the prejudice is. That's where I go. That's what I do. So many others shy away from it. They don't want to talk about that. Okay? Let's sweep that under the rug. Let's keep it quiet. No, not here. We're going to deal with this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to keep you informed as to what's going on. Because you see, one of the problems that I have is, how can so-called Christians who cannot, I can't understand it, Christians who cannot unite under the same roof and have the same belief systems, but yet want to call themselves Christians. So how is it that some members are basically openly acknowledging that there's racism in their hearts, in their heads, and in their churches, but they will never, ever acknowledge that publicly? But basically, that is what the United Methodist Church, the conservative wing of it, is acknowledging to you by this action. Because they're saying to you, they don't want to do anything to eliminate racism, bigotry, and prejudice in our country. But yet they want to be called Christians. They want to be looked upon as members of the faith. They want to be looked upon as believers in God. And God says, love thy neighbor as you love yourself. What is wrong with these people? Now, let me say this to be sure. While I am sitting here telling you about what's going on in the United Methodist Church, I am in no way saying that this is the only denomination that has these same issues. Just the fact that they have enough guts to come forward and admit it. They no longer want to be associated with people who think or feel or act differently than they do. So when you see these global Methodist churches springing up in your neighborhoods, if you're Black, if you're brown, if you're gay, if you're lesbian, if you're transgender, they're saying to you right now, they don't have the time for you in their church, they don't have the love for you in their church, and they don't have the room for you in their church. So get it straight. I'm telling you, this is what is happening in the church and in our country today. You see, not everybody wants to see inclusion, diversity, and end prejudice in this country. And many of them will tell you without a shadow of a doubt, I'm a staunch Christian. You know, I mean, I'm laughing, but it's really not funny, ladies and gentlemen. It really is not. See, I saw this coming, and I will tell you, I think this is just the beginning. You know, if we will look back over the last few years with the election of President DJT, evangelicals, churches flocked behind a man who was everything that the evangelicals said they stand for. Okay? He was a con man, a fraudster. He has been married multiple times. He was vulgar. He was misogynistic. He was racist. And yet, they embraced him wholeheartedly. Now, I want you to think back to the time when John F. Kennedy was elected. It was next to impossible for a man who was single, who had been married multiple times, who was immoral. It was almost impossible for that person to be elected president of the United States. And now we fast forward and we see that, hey, anything goes if it's the right person. Donald Trump has been married 3 times, cheated on every one of his wives, had children outside of his marriage, been a fraudster, been a con man, filed bankruptcy multiple times. And yet, the evangelicals embraced him wholeheartedly, lock, stock, and barrel, ladies and gentlemen. So you see, the church itself is falling apart. We're seeing churches of all denominations losing members almost in droves. Now, I'm of the opinion that this split between what is now known as the United Methodist Church, this split will cause and create further dissolution of their membership, especially on the conservative side. But you can't tell them that. So anyhow, May the 1st, 2022, mark it on your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. This is a new day for Methodist churches in particular, United Methodist, which is now being split into a new faction called Global Methodist Church. I'm willing to see how this works out for both groups. But I asked the question, will the real Christians in the United Methodist Church please stand up? I'm James Barfield.